Good morning. My name is Vagif, and I came from Norway. I'm Russian, actually, working for Norwegian company Miles. And if you asked me, or if you told me a couple of years ago that I would be speaking on a front-end conference, then I would smile, I would shrug my shoulders, because, you know, of course, maybe I would be interested in user interface, but how would I dare actually talking at a front-end conference, because I'm a backend developer. But I think I've learned something during these couple of years, which I found quite essential for us as, or for those of us who consider themselves backend developers, that actually I dare sharing it with you. And hopefully there is something to take away for others. So first of all, I'm a backend developer who consider themselves mostly backend developers. Yeah, at least half. Who are full stack developers? Yeah. Just front-end developers. Salesmen? Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm a backend developer, and I work for in a project where actually we develop quite critical systems. So if system stops, that's really a crisis, because we're publishing news clips, we're publishing multimedia content, and of course it has to be available like immediately. We should be scalable, we should be reliable, all this stuff. So why should a backend developer care about user interface? Because we are kind of expecting to know to control our things using command line tools like this. By the way, who can guess what this command does? Any guesses? Come on, you backend developers. It shows all sorts of unmerged branches. It's quite logical. Obviously, yeah, it's obvious. All these, of course, when we show things, it's JSON. This is actually JSON from one of our services, which shows state of published media content. And of course, to figure out if something goes wrong, you should read this JSON, but it's not brainer for us backend developers. Of course, we quickly realize that something is wrong. But actually, how quickly we realize? Because in our organization, we sometimes have postmortems. Who has postmortems in their organizations? The postmortem is a meeting to figure out what went wrong and how to get better. Yeah, like half. Those who don't have, so you don't analyze production errors, or you just take it with your teams probably. Yeah, so you must have some kind of postmortems, and we have them from time to time. And what is embarrassing actually, that sometimes our postmortems are based on errors reported by listeners and viewers, actually by general public, because this is Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation, analog of BBC, okay, in Norway. And then of course the worst thing when our viewers call us, or they send us messages saying that, oh yeah, by the way, I didn't get subtitles in the last program. That's really embarrassing that we didn't catch it. And that's an indication that maybe we are not as quick or as sort of sharp looking at our tools, monitors, dashboards. So for example, coming back to this JSON, it says that there is an upload in progress. I took a snapshot around 25th of August. And it says the program is being uploaded, so that's fine. And then, but if I scroll this JSON, I found that actually it's been uploaded from 21st of August, actually for 4 days. There must be something wrong there. And it's just an indication that it's not sufficient, like just to read through the things and trying to figure out yourself. So you have to really be very quick and care about visualizing quality of your services. There is a great talk which I wholeheartedly recommend. I watched it many years ago, but actually he did it in David Evans did it in several conferences, so there are some video recordings. David Evans talks about how lack of proper visualization ended up with catastrophes, like loss of spaceship, killing all people. And being British, he also gave some great example of schematic visualization which is not entirely correct, like London tube map, and showing how you should travel from Paddington. If you have Paddington railway station and you want to go to Lancaster Gate, then most of the people, they would do like this. They travel to Notting Hill Gate, then they change and then travel to Lancaster Gate. And if you look at the geographically correct map, then you will see that there can be something wrong here. So basically, you're traveling right to the west, and then you're coming back. So maybe you will be better off actually walking there. And in fact, if you check Google, you will find that it takes only 7 minutes to walk, while it will take you 9 minutes to use public transport. And then, of course, you may think that this is just an exception because, yeah, well, how many times it's easier to walk than to take trains? So probably people don't do such mistakes often. So how many people do you think in London they misplan their travel when they take a tube? Who think that that's less than 10%? Yeah, you prepare for like later. Okay, who think that between 10 and 20%? Yeah, who think that it's more than 25%? Yeah, and I prepared you. Yeah, so yeah, of course, you're right. Actually, this is a shocking number. About 30% of people traveling in London, they actually misplan their trips based on very elegant but geographically incorrect schematic visualization. Coming back to our dashboards, this is one of the dashboards that we have in our organization, which shows a number of messages in RabbitMQ queue. So, and if there are fewer than 25 messages, and then it shows green. And all queues are green currently because there are very few messages. It's very convincing until you start thinking, what if some queues actually never receive any messages in hours? So maybe it's an indication something is wrong. There's just nothing is going on through the queue. So we should extend it at least with something like this, which shows this shows how many messages going through some important queues last 2 hours, like 88 messages. It's more convincing. So it's not just snapshot. So you have to actually come back and rethink your visualization. You shouldn't just trust your dashboards based on third-party tools because they are always opinionated and they just give you just some part of your reality. So this is why we as backend developers or full-stack developers who work with internal services in backend corners, we still need to care and think about how things are visualized for us, because we need to be able to make quick decisions. It's not fine just to use command line tools, which and only if you actually know properly how to control them. It's not fine just to adopt some dashboard. Okay, this is opinionate, but this is better than nothing, because we can end up with this London map scenario when we rely on some representation which hides some aspects from us. So what's the answer? Actually, the answer is to be able to build our own user interface, our own front ends, even if we visualize some internal services. And there are several options, and I just put question marks here because I don't think any of them are wrong or right. If you learn JavaScript, that's great. I personally find it hard to dedicate much time on going this path, because I always have a pile of things in our Jira dashboards. Of course, many people develop internal front ends using some sort of Java or C# frameworks. You can use ASP.NET MVC, or you can use something like Spring MVC. These days, when people strive to use a single-page application, that it probably becomes less popular, but it's also a viable option. Of course, you can team up with front-end developers. A great thing if you have front-end developers as a member of your team, now that's very practical. If in your little corner you don't, then just teaming up for a few hours, probably this pair programming session won't bring you much further. You can get some inspirations, but you will hardly learn how to write your own front ends just if you sit a few hours with front-end developer. So using functional programming in our team, I was searching through viable options, and then I came across Elm, which actually it's very elegant, very small language, and it's very convincing for backend people, especially those who work with functional programming. This is it may be thought as a kind of language created by Haskell lovers, but actually this quote is from the article where the writer of the article was eventually convinced that this is the way for him to go. So Elm is functional, it's immutable, it uses strong types, static types, and so if you haven't worked with Fable at all and you want to go that path, you want to explore options of using functional programming on the front end, maybe Elm is the best place to start, even for FSharp developer, because it's designed specifically to build web pages. Like with Fable using FSharp, and of course, in the beginning it can be confusing. I'm in the world of FSharp, which interoperates with .NET, so I can bring any namespace, but in fact it's just some subset of .NET which is supported. With Elm, I mean, everything which you see in Elm is what you get in a real application. It compares to JavaScript, and it has very simple model based on immutability, calling model view update. So in brief, if I just show it in one slide how Elm architecture looks, you have a model, you have initial state, and you have some transformations. Of course, you must define messages, which are basis for your transformation. So all transformation based on certain messages, and then you transform using update functions. Everything is function basically to views, and also if you want to subscribe to external events, to something which is happening in outside world, then you can also use subscriptions. And on the top, the Elm program looks like this. So you define your initial model, view, update, how you transform your models, and optionally you can also define subscriptions. So actually I spent even sometimes with Elm, and then while I was thinking, okay, should I adopt Elm, should I not? And also I was messing up with CSS. I was not quite convinced that this will be easy path, because I didn't find a proper CSS wrapper for views that I wanted to present. So actually, around that time, Fable got a component which was called Fable Elmish, which actually was a closer match to our ecosystem because we have been using FSharp. So what about Fable then? So this slide probably is not needed for most of you because you're on a Fable conference. What is essential is some extra components for Fable, in particular Fable Elmish and Fable React, which gives you Fable architecture, so you can use MVU. And also, as we will see in the demo, libraries like Fulma or Fable Material UI, which are CSS wrappers for guys like me, who actually don't have much clue about what CSS is. But is it production ready? So that's an important question. Can we start using it? And it often for developers becomes a question that stops them. I mean, is it production ready? I mean, can I really use it? And for me, turning point, it was Oslo Elm Day this year. There was a Saturday conference. It was quite impressive. About 150 people came across the globe to Oslo to attend Oslo Elm Day. And I went there to get inspired and also to maybe to listen to some stories, some successful stories from people, especially in enterprise organizations, in large organizations who adopted something like Elm. And actually there was an organization which changed its name since then. Now it's called V. It used to be called NSB. It's Norwegian National Railway. And they actually adopted in 2017 Elm. And the presenter, Jonas Berdal, he was like half my age, in his mid-20s, and probably that was part of success, because it looks like it was a bunch of youngsters who didn't pay enough respect that, like in large organizations, you just can't adopt a new technology. You have to grow to some committee, you have to convince architects. So they didn't realize that it's not easy to adopt such things, they just did it. And this is actually why they succeeded. Of course, they had great management who trusted in them. But now, if you travel in Norway by train and you load some mobile app, then you're running some Elm. So for me, it was quite inspiring. Okay, so I'm sitting and thinking, okay, should we do it? Should we not? Is it production ready? Okay, just come back and do it. And actually, it was a very great moment for us because at that time we were migrating quite large database consisting of a lot of event journals from MongoDB to the cloud. And we needed, in addition to automated tests, we need some visual tests of what's going on. So that was a perfect scenario actually to try Fable Elmish in our organization. If you want to check out event journals, event sourcing, the theory, architecture backs them, I recommend great talk from last year Fable conference by Roman Provaznik. So my talk can be considered as a sequel, because Roman did a great overview of how to build event sourcing using Azure Cosmos DB, with just one difference. We didn't settle for Cosmos DB. If you have enough money to use Cosmos DB, use it. But I also think that Cosmos DB goes a little bit against CQRS approach, because if you are building event journal or if you're doing event sourcing, then, and if you want to divide read and write sides, then why would you need Cosmos? Because with Cosmos it gets you both. You can query, you can search into your documents. If you just write your events as blobs, then table store actually is perfect. It's cheap, it's almost free, basically, and it's extremely scalable. So this is what you get if you look at Azure Table Viewer, which of course is not enough to even for backend developers to look at event journal payload. Next step, what we did, we built Azure functions on the top of that, just to have it, to have a Swagger, to have a little bit more domain specific, but it's still not sufficient. Again, we have to react quickly. If something goes wrong, we have to see it in a proper color. We can't just go through Swagger or have some look at some JSONs. So we started building Fable app on the top of that, and it went extremely fast. It just took few days, basically maybe half a week. This is a snapshot of production application where on the left pane you see various event journals, and then you get results from your search, and then you have some payload, which actually is a task to do to prettify payload depending on if it's XML or JSON, but it's used internally. We did a little sketching. We have journals, so we need a list of journals, and then we need in our app to be able to choose between interval or search by specific aggregate ID. We need to have some simple searches like 1 hour, 4 hours, 24 hours. Okay, you search, you get some results, and then if you click on certain event, you get payload for this event. So this is what we wanted to build and figure out if we are able to quickly build it in Fable the way we wanted. So this was our plan. And this is what I'm going to show you. Create FSharp model type, create messages as discriminated union, create some HTML page with handlers using React, and then we will get some minimalistic HTML, which will be great for engineers, but completely unusable for for other people, basically. And then we add minimal Fulma, so without using any magic strings. Okay, what if we just try to use whatever FSharp gives us? Is it usable? Maybe it will have some shortcomings. Then we'll try to fix them. So the final step to fix some shortcomings, actually to dive into some CSS and see how far, and if it can go as far as making great application. So let's begin. Let me show you how it looks. So if I switch to my Visual Studio Code, yeah. So this is our application, and this is our model. I think, yeah, you should be able to see it. So it's all FSharp, and it's quite simple. You have some event sources, and each of them represents some event journal. For example, subtitles is self-explanatory. Potion is actually a name for event journal with some news clips, and so on. Some event collections, and then some discriminated unions for search options, search status, yeah, time zone, UTC or local, of course, never-ending story. This is a service event. It's a record type. So it's quite simple. And then we have messages, which again is quite simple. I think you have discriminated union, and then for those messages which originate asynchronous communication, like loading up settings, it can succeed or it can fail. So you have upsetting loaded, upsetting error. Then different search options, by ID, by interval, 1 hour, 4 hours, and so on. Control change handlers. Starting search, again, 3 messages. Starting, completed, error. Loading content, loaded or error. So again, it's very simple. And then we have update function to complete the loop. This update function, okay, so we need initial model. Initial model is our model with just empty strings and zeros. And then update function is basically handlers for various messages. And most of them, if you see CMD none here, it means that we are done. For example, if this is something which happens on the screen, we're changing search mode. Okay, we change the model and we're done. But some of them, they generate asynchronous operations. For example, start search. Then we're starting search, and then which can result in search completed or search error. Then we go to start search. Here it uses some Fable internals, which is interop with JavaScript. Again, for us, it's all wrapped as FSharp functions, methods. But here it's a nice opportunity to learn some JavaScript if you need to. So for me, it was very nice way to expose myself to JavaScript, because okay, now I need to fetch some results, and here fetch us. Okay, if I want to learn some internals, I go in the source code, and then I figure out what's going on. And then we need a view. View is written using Fable React, which comes with HTML tags, just like in HTML page. So you have divs, you have various HTML like buttons and other properties. So if you look through this view, you will see that it's just like HTML page basically. So let's look at, for example, at show status. You have such that is idle or running. You have divs and then status and so on. So if you run this application, and to run this application, you need to start. Let me show you. So it updates its dev pack, and then it's hot reloading. So we will see it as we change something, and it will reload. So then if we will end up with something like this. No, let me change it. HTML apps. Let me change it to HTML view. HTML view, I changed it, now it needs to. HTML, let me see. Yeah. Yeah, so it was also a nice opportunity to present IntelliSense work in FSharp. And you see it's reloaded the page, and you see fully functional application. So if I select some journal, actually we are now connected to our production facilities, and then I try to search. Yeah, actually I get some results. And if I click on some result, then if I scroll down, I have content. So we are done. And like being an engineer, I would say, I mean, this is the end of story. So we have a working up. And actually, I have a friend, very bright guy. He would look at it and say, no, that you don't need to spend more time on it. But you probably will have hard time to sell it to somebody else. So next step is we add just minimal of some CSS wrapper. And that one which I found the Fulma working the best. If you, like me, if you really don't have much understanding of CSS and you want just add some opinionated layout, consistent, nice looking, then Fulma is your friend. So we changing to minimal Fulma view. Minimal Fulma view is that we slightly modify it. For example, we use things like columns, for example. This is not part of HTML. This is not part of Fable React. But Fulma is a wrapper across Bulma CSS, which is responsive CSS. So it has this notion of columns. So you can build your layout from columns, and then it will change its content according to your screen size. You can specify here, for example, for screen all, here says column 1/4. So it will be roughly 1/4 of your screen for all screens. Or you can specify that if you're mobile, then you have different settings. So let's change it. If you look at the source code, it's actually quite close to original view. It's just that we replace some divs and paragraphs with high-level aspects from Fulma. So let's change it now to minimal Fulma view. Minimal Fulma view. And it should actually, yeah. So actually, this is, I would say that it's better. Do you agree that it's better? Yeah, it is. So, yeah, we're searching now, and we get some results, and we look at it, and then, yeah. So actually, it's almost good enough. But here at this point, an important question is asked. I mean, is it just proof of concept, which gives us good enough pages, or if we're not happy with something, we should actually dive into this and change it and learn something else, something more of CSS maybe. For example, here we have a lot of documents, but I have to scroll like this. I mean, this is not satisfactory. And I would say, I mean, this is not satisfactory even for internal web app. So either we find a way to fix it, or if it's not fixable, then unfortunately it's not ready for production. Yeah, and for me it was a very also good way of being exposed to CSS, because now I have something with a clean, nice layout which almost works but has some shortcomings. Now I can start learning, okay, how do I add a scroll bar here to this column? Because I know it's a very focused task. In the beginning, when I was looking at the basic HTML, I didn't know where to start. So let's switch to Fulma view, which is looks almost like original one with just some additions. You can compare source code later. It's in the GitHub. For example, here when it comes to this column, it says, okay, this is actually what controls this vertical scroll bar. I specify some CSS properties, like I specify how much percentage used for the height, or percentage of screen used for the column, so the column doesn't go indefinitely. So, and there are a few things like that which I added, which took quite short time to learn. So if I come back now to my app and change it to Fulma view, and then we see what's going on. Oops, you see, there is a scroll bar here. So as you see that it's quite nice path for a backend developer to learn writing front end in such a way. So you can actually achieve results very quickly. You can have nice web application with some shortcomings, and you can fix them actually by learning this. I had an internal presentation this week. I had a trial run in our organization, and one of the comments was that we may try something similar in our team, because they're also using FSharp. And that was a comment I liked very much, that somebody decided to give it a try, because they were convinced that this is something that actually quite efficient for them. And if we look at code metrics, so which that's also interesting to compare. We actually had, for our old MongoDB, we had a C# app which showed content of these journals. And you see that, first of all, it had twice as many lines. And this is always the case with F#, but whatever you convert to F#, you end up with like half number of lines. But what is actually more complicated is that it's for different languages, which you need to learn to properly manage it. So now it's all in F#, and it's half number of lines. So that's also quite important conclusion for us, that we can be quite efficient. And now we keep adding things to this application, and we have also plans to write more applications like this. And we see that once the basic part is written, it really takes just few lines of code and maybe a couple of hours to add more features. Something which we never had while working with the original web app written in C# with HTML, with JavaScript, with CSS. So that's pretty much which I wanted to share with you. I thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the conference.